From the bustling streets of New York City to the quiet corners of rural America, gangs have embedded themselves into the social fabric of nearly every state in the nation. These criminal organizations range from local neighborhood crews to nationally recognized syndicates, each with its own code, territory, and history of violence. In cities plagued by gun violence, drug trafficking, and human exploitation, gangs often operate as shadow governments, enforcing their own rules and punishing those who defy them. While names like MS-13, the Bloods, and the Aryan Brotherhood dominate headlines, countless other groups wield significant power within state lines, often hidden from public view. This documentary takes you on a journey across all 50 states, exposing the most dangerous gang operating in each one, revealing their origins, criminal activities, and the impact they have on communities, law enforcement, and the American justice system. The Aryan Knights in Idaho. In the remote mountainous state of Idaho, a violent white supremacist prison gang has grown from the shadows, ruthless, organized, and deadly. They are known as the Aryan Knights, or AK, and they represent one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the Pacific Northwest. Formed in the early 2000s within the Idaho Department of Correction, the Aryan Knights began as a protection gang for white inmates. But over time, they transformed into a structured and feared syndicate that operates both inside prison walls and on the streets. Their foundation is rooted in white supremacist ideology, but their operations are fueled by power, money, and fear. Inside Idaho's prisons, AK enforces loyalty through violence. New members must prove themselves by committing acts of brutality, including assaults and stabbings. The gang uses coded language, hand signs, and tattoos like lightning bolts and swastikas to show allegiance. Once a member joins, there's no way out without severe consequences. On the outside, the Aryan Knights are heavily involved in drug trafficking, particularly methamphetamine. They run complex distribution networks across Idaho and into neighboring states, using intimidation, violence, and murder to protect their territory. Federal investigations have linked the group to kidnapping, firearms trafficking, and violent assaults targeting rivals and suspected informants. In recent years, law enforcement has made significant efforts to dismantle the Aryan Knights. Federal RICO indictments have sent many of their leaders to high-security prisons. But the gang continues to recruit, evolve, and spread its ideology through new generations of inmates. The Aryan Knights are more than a gang. They are a homegrown extremist threat embedded in the prison system and spilling onto Idaho's streets. Their presence is a chilling reminder of how hate can be weaponized behind bars and far beyond. The Black Guerrilla family in Maryland. Deep within the prison walls of Maryland, behind locked gates and surveillance cameras, operates one of the most powerful and dangerous African-American prison gangs in the United States, the Black Guerrilla family. Originally founded in 1966 in California by George Jackson, a revolutionary and Black Panther, the Black Guerrilla family, or BGF, was built on a foundation of Marxist ideology, racial justice, and resistance against the prison system. But in Maryland, that ideology has blurred with corruption, power, and ruthless criminal enterprise. By the 2000s, the BGF had taken firm control over parts of the Maryland prison system, especially the Baltimore City Detention Center. Inside, the gang ran smuggling operations, extortion rackets, and ruled with violence. Shockingly, their grip extended to prison staff. In a massive 2013 federal investigation, 25 people, including 13 corrections officers, were indicted for helping the BGF traffic drugs, cell phones, and other contraband behind bars. Some of the officers were even romantically involved with gang members, bearing their children while secretly aiding their rise. The BGF doesn't just operate behind bars, it also thrives in Baltimore's streets. There, they've been linked to drug trafficking, weapons offenses, and violent turf wars. Their hierarchical structure, complete with codes, pledges, and strict loyalty, makes them hard to infiltrate and even harder to dismantle. What makes the Black Guerrilla family so dangerous in Maryland is their hybrid identity: part gang, part criminal empire, part revolutionary brotherhood. They claim to stand for justice, but leave a trail of destruction in their wake. Today, federal and state authorities continue to monitor BGF activities closely, but as long as the cycle of poverty, incarceration, and broken systems remains, so too does the power of the Black Guerrilla family. The heartless felons in Ohio. In the heart of Ohio's urban chaos, one gang has risen to dominate the streets and the prison system with fear and brutality. They call themselves the Heartless Felons, an infamous and increasingly powerful force in cities like Cleveland, Akron, and beyond. The Heartless Felons emerged in the early 2000s from within the Ohio Department of Youth Services. What began as a group of young offenders quickly evolved into one of the most feared gangs in the state. Unlike many traditional street gangs, the Heartless Felons operate with a militaristic structure, complete with ranks, rules, and an iron grip on loyalty. Betrayal means death. On the streets, they are known for ruthless robberies, drive-by shootings, carjackings, and drug trafficking. But what truly sets them apart is their control inside juvenile and adult correctional facilities. In many Ohio prisons, the Heartless Felons reign supreme, running extortion rings, orchestrating assaults, and intimidating both inmates and staff. Their influence doesn't stop at the prison gates. Police and prosecutors have linked the gang to dozens of murders and brazen attacks. Surveillance footage has captured them mobbing stores in flash-style robberies. In neighborhoods across Northeast Ohio, residents live in fear of their reach and retaliation. What makes the Heartless Felons particularly dangerous is their age. Many members are teenagers or in their early 20s, making them unpredictable and willing to take extreme risks for status and respect. Law enforcement agencies have launched aggressive crackdowns using RICO charges, task forces, and community outreach. But the gang continues to evolve, recruit, and spread its influence across Ohio and into neighboring states. The Heartless Felons are more than just a name. They are a violent symbol of youth lost to the streets, institutions overwhelmed, and communities under siege. The European Kindred in Oregon. Beneath the surface of Oregon's natural beauty lies a darker undercurrent of violence and racial extremism. In the prison yards and streets of the Pacific Northwest, one of the state's most dangerous white supremacist gangs has carved out a ruthless reputation. They are known as the European Kindred. Founded in 1998 within the Oregon Department of Corrections, the European Kindred, or EK, quickly rose to power inside prison walls. Originally formed for protection by white inmates, the group evolved into a criminal organization built on fear, loyalty, and violence. Their ideology is steeped in white supremacy, and their motto is clear: loyalty to the brotherhood above all else. Inside prison, EK enforces a strict code. Members are expected to carry out assaults, stabbings, or even killings on command. Refusal often means a brutal death, but the gang's influence stretches far beyond prison gates. On the outside, EK members engage in drug trafficking, armed robberies, home invasions, and intimidation. Methamphetamine remains a primary source of income and destruction. What makes the European Kindred so dangerous is their structure. Unlike many loosely organized white gangs, EK operates with a military-style hierarchy. They have leaders, soldiers, and clear chains of command, making them efficient, coordinated, and hard to infiltrate. EK's presence in cities like Portland and Salem has sparked waves of concern as former inmates bring their prison-born violence into communities already facing economic and racial tension. While law enforcement continues to crack down on EK activity through raids and federal indictments, the gang adapts, recruiting younger members and expanding its criminal enterprises. The European kindred represents more than a gang. It's a symbol of hate, power, and control within Oregon's shadows, and its threat remains very real. The native mob in South Dakota. In the heart of South Dakota, far from the urban chaos of America's major cities, a silent storm brews on the plains and within prison walls. It's not a foreign cartel or an imported criminal enterprise. It's homegrown. It's called the native mob. Born in the late 1990s out of the struggle and desperation faced by indigenous communities in Minnesota, the native mob spread rapidly across the Midwest, finding a firm foothold in South Dakota. Their roots are buried deep in poverty, historical trauma, and systemic neglect, conditions that make the gang not just a violent force, but a symptom of deeper national failures. Inside South Dakota's prison system, the native mob is a dominant and dangerous presence. Behind bars, they operate like a military unit, organized, secretive, and ruthless. Gang tattoos are badges of loyalty, and betrayal is punished by beatings, stabbings, or death. Their influence doesn't end at the prison gates. On reservations and in towns like Rapid City and Pine Ridge, they're linked to drug trafficking, extortion, and violent crime. Methamphetamine is their main currency, both a weapon and a poison. They move it across state lines, relying on deeply rooted connections across tribal lands. Violence is a means of control, but also a way of earning status. What makes the native mob unique is their identity, fiercely tied to their indigenous heritage. This connection gives them a sense of purpose, twisted though it may be, and makes law enforcement's job even harder. It's not just crime, it's culture, power, and survival. South Dakota's fight against the native mob is ongoing, but it's more than a criminal battle. It's a battle for the future of youth, sovereignty, and justice on America's forgotten frontiers. Ghostface gangsters in Georgia. The Ghostface Gangsters, one of Georgia's most violent and secretive white prison gangs, has grown from a prison-based brotherhood into a deadly force both behind bars and on the streets. Founded in the early 2000s within Georgia's state prison system, the gang was created by white inmates seeking racial solidarity and protection amid the increasingly violent and racially divided prison environment. What began as a small crew quickly expanded into a statewide criminal enterprise. The Ghostface Gangsters, often referred to as GFG, adopt a white supremacist ideology, though their main focus remains on criminal activity. Their operations include drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, armed robbery, and violent assaults, targeting rivals, law enforcement, and anyone who betrays the gang. Unlike more structured national gangs, GFG maintains a strict code of loyalty, secrecy, and violence. Members earn their way in through acts of brutality, often involving stabbings or hits ordered within the prison system. Once initiated, members are bound by an oath, and betrayal often results in death. The gang's influence has spilled out of Georgia's prisons and into its streets, particularly in Atlanta, Macon, and Augusta. GFG members are known for their tattoos, often featuring skulls, swastikas, or the letters GFG, and their involvement in the methamphetamine trade across rural and suburban areas. Over the past decade, law enforcement has ramped up efforts to crack down on the Ghostface Gangsters. Federal raids, undercover operations, and RICO indictments have led to the arrest of dozens of members, but the gang remains active and resilient. The Ghostface Gangsters represent a dangerous and growing threat, one fueled by hate, drugs, and violence. Their presence in Georgia is a stark example of how prison gangs can evolve into powerful street-level criminal organizations with deadly consequences for communities across the state. The Latin Kings in Indiana. In the heartland of America, far from the traditional strongholds of East Coast and West Coast gangs, the Latin Kings have established a powerful and dangerous presence. In cities like Gary, Fort Wayne, and Indianapolis, the Indiana Latin Kings have built an empire defined by strict codes, violent enforcement, and deep-rooted loyalty. Originating from Chicago, the Latin Kings expanded into Indiana in the 1990s, bringing with them a highly organized structure based on hierarchy, discipline, and ideology. At the top sits the Inca, the gang's leader, followed by officers and soldiers who carry out orders with precision and brutality. In Indiana, the Latin Kings have become one of the most violent and active street gangs. Their operations include drug trafficking, weapons distribution, armed robbery, and murder. Law enforcement has linked the gang to numerous shootings, targeted assassinations of rivals, and coordinated criminal activity both on the streets and behind bars. Inside Indiana's prison system, the Latin Kings enforce their rules with zero tolerance for disobedience. Members are expected to participate in assaults, extortion, and gang politics. Loyalty is rewarded with protection and status. Betrayal is punished with violence or death. What makes the Indiana Latin Kings particularly dangerous is their ability to adapt. They use coded language, encrypted communications, and tight-knit family-style recruitment to stay one step ahead of law enforcement. Their influence extends across state lines, connected to the national Latin King network that stretches coast to coast. Despite numerous arrests, indictments, and takedown operations, the Latin Kings continue to operate in Indiana, recruiting younger members and expanding their criminal reach. The Indiana Latin Kings are more than just a street gang. They are a well-structured criminal organization built on power, secrecy, and an unbreakable code of brotherhood. Sex, money, murder in New Jersey. In the dense cities and gritty suburbs of New Jersey, one of the most feared and violent bloodsets has carved out its territory, operating with ruthless efficiency and leaving a trail of chaos in its wake. They are known as sex, money, murder, or SMM, and their name says it all. Originally founded in the Bronx during the early 1990s, sex, money, murder quickly spread along the East Coast, gaining a stronghold in New Jersey cities like Newark, Trenton, and Jersey City. As a faction of the United Blood Nation, SMM is notorious for its brutality, street-level drug operations, and extreme loyalty to gang life. In New Jersey, SMM operates like a militarized criminal organization. Their structure is tightly controlled, with leaders issuing orders from prison cells and soldiers executing missions on the streets. Those missions often include armed robberies, home invasions, drug trafficking, and targeted assassinations of rivals and suspected informants. Federal and state investigations have linked SMM to a series of murders, drive-by shootings, and heroin and fentanyl distribution rings. Their preferred tools are guns, fear, and reputation, making them a dominant force in the gang underworld of New Jersey. What sets sex, money, murder apart is their ability to maintain control even when leaders are behind bars. They use coded language, hidden communications, and loyal intermediaries to run operations seamlessly between prison and street. In recent years, law enforcement has launched major takedowns of SMM members through RICO indictments and federal raids, but the gang continues to adapt and recruit, often targeting teenagers and vulnerable communities. Sex, money, murder isn't just a name, it's a code, a creed, and a violent empire that continues to challenge law and order across New Jersey's urban landscape. MS-13 in Nebraska. In the heart of the American Midwest, far from the coastal strongholds where it first gained power, the notorious gang MS-13 has quietly taken root. Nebraska, known for its vast farmlands and tight-knit communities, has become an unexpected battleground in the war against one of the world's most violent gangs. Mara Salvatrucha, or MS-13, began in Los Angeles in the 1980s, but grew into a transnational criminal organization with deep ties to El Salvador. In recent years, law enforcement agencies have tracked its spread into smaller states like Nebraska, especially in cities like Omaha, Grand Island, and Lexington, where growing immigrant communities have become both targets and recruitment grounds. In Nebraska, MS-13 operates with the same brutality that made them infamous. Their crimes include drug trafficking, extortion, assault, and murder. Investigators have tied the gang to multiple killings, including machete-style executions, hallmarks of their violent signature. What makes MS-13 so dangerous is their unwavering loyalty, militaristic structure, and willingness to use extreme violence to enforce discipline or eliminate threats. Young recruits are often lured in with promises of protection and family, only to be trapped in a cycle of crime and fear. Federal and state authorities have launched joint task forces to root out MS-13 cells in Nebraska, resulting in several high-profile arrests and deportations. But the gang adapts quickly, using encrypted messaging, decentralized leadership, and underground networks to stay active and under the radar. For Nebraska, the rise of MS-13 is a sobering reminder that no state is immune to organized gang violence. As communities struggle to push back, the fight against MS-13 continues in courtrooms, on street corners, and behind prison walls.